gotta walk the talk and sing the rhyme. Confidence so heavy it stops time. Eyes on the prize, yeah, that's the line.
Welcome to the inaugural episode of Speak Like the Boss Podcast. I'm Anthony. This is Chase. How you doing today?
Man, same stuff, different day.
Yeah, I can hear that. Today, as the title suggests, we're going to talk about the difference between dating 50 years ago to today and the transition from the 1970s. Are you ready for something like that?
I don't know. I'm not that. You might be that old. I'm not that old.
I'm not that old either. That's before my time, but I did do my due diligence and research to figure this out. So, do you want to tell them anything about ourselves first, or do we just want to skip right into this?
That's up to you.
Yeah, we'll just go right into it. We can do a separate thing later. So, tell me what you think about just the generation of differences off the top of your head, very briefly, without going into too much detail, of how much the world has changed.
Like since we were kids, or
Since
the
1970s. And then I'll go into some of the things that I've kind of looked into before this.
Well, in the 70s, dating-wise, things were still pretty traditional, you know. Man makes the money, you know. He initiates, he is the assertive one. Girls were probably less promiscuous than they are today. Obviously, no social media, no dating apps. If you didn't go anywhere, you didn't meet anybody.
Right, for sure. So the things that I looked up today is some big milestones that happened every decade, every 10 years since the 1970s. I'm just going to read some of them off to you and see what you think about it and how it could have changed everything. So 1970s, let's start with the feminist movement. Okay. Right off the bat.
That's right, yeah.
Right, so that was one of the first things that changed dating. Prior to that, women kind of had a role in the household. They knew they needed to get married. They knew they had to have kids, and they made the man go to work, right? When this came about, the first thing that comes to mind for me that changed is they started becoming more independent. They joined the workforce, right?
Independence.
And I think that pushed off what their goal was or their perspective was as far as creating a family.
Yes.
So rather than being 20 years old and going and getting married and like our grandparents did, and I've been married for 60 years, and that no longer exists.
Well, today it doesn't exist. I think if you're looking at specifically like the 70s, 80s, 90s, I don't think that really, like the independent woman thing really became a thing until, I would say early 2000s, but really it wasn't until social media took off, which I guess was early 2000s. You know, Facebook came out, go forward.
Right, and we're going to get to there. We're still stuck in the 70s, but I'll go through everything with you.
Yeah, but you know, it was, you know, like I was trying not to go into too much detail, like you said, but
sure,
you know, the woman was the homemaker. If she wanted a house and, you know, a family, then she had to marry and rely on a man, you know, to take care of him.
Yeah, this is what it was at the time.
Yeah, what do they call it, the nuclear family.
That's correct. Yep. So here's another one that was created in the 70s and how things are different. Contraceptives.
Oh God,
were created in the 70s.
That's crazy, yeah.
Right? So if you think about before that, there was obligations to having sex with a partner.
Yeah.
Because you may end up pregnant.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
With that invention, I guess you'd call it at this point, is it allowed women to be far more promiscuous than ever before.
Yes, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Without the repercussions of, oh no, I'm knocked up.
Well, it's more than that. It changed. So, like, I think still in the 70s, at least hearing from my parents who grew up in that era.
Yeah.
It was still, you know, if you did knock someone up, you know, you married them. You got married, you know, you dealt with that, I guess, consequence, for lack of a better way to put it.
Right.
You know, and you made bread.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. Here's one for you, kind of going off topic, but still in the 70s. Something that you used to do for affection. You made a mixtape for a lady.
Oh my God.
Right? So think about this for a second. This was before the days of cell phones.
Yeah.
Right? So if you were apart from your significant other, there was no, I'm just going to call them and see how they're doing.
Yeah.
It was, let me listen to that mixtape that they made for me because it's the only way they can be closer together while we're apart.
That was seriously like a huge thing in the 70s?
It was a huge thing. The guy would find songs that made him think of his woman and hand it to her so she could listen to these tracks to express how he's feeling without actually having to say it.
That's crazy. Well, maybe that's why my dad had an 8-track tape player back in the day.
Well, they were cassettes. I mean, you know, a lot of them. I'm sure there was 8 tracks in the 70s. I don't know. I'm not
didn't know how to.
Before my time, but
Yeah.
Here's another one's going to blow your mind. 1970s. People used to create personal ads in the newspaper to find a date.
Yeah, I know that. I've seen
Yes.
that. So, like, this is probably a little bit better audio.
Yes. Let me hear you better.
Yeah, so that was actually, I can't remember if it was my mom or my grandma, but somebody showed me an article of a dude, like, asking my mom out in the paper from back in the day, yeah.
That's it. And they would put it in there like, 32-year-old male, construction worker looking for a significant other.
Yeah.
I like bike rides, and that's where the whole long walks on the beach came from.
Okay,
you know, like it was their part of their bio. So it was their Tinder ad before Tinder.
That's
they put it in
crazy.
the newspaper for everybody to see.
That's so crazy.
So we're going to jump ahead to the 1980s. 1980s officially is when the term of hookup culture began.
Okay.
So this was...
That makes sense. That's like, you know, hard rock, you know, what, Steven Tyler, Motley Crue, Ozzy Osbourne, all those guys just going buck wild with drugs and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, a different time completely. Here's a good stat for you with part of it. Because something else that happened in the 80s, people started learning about HIV from all the crazy sex that they were having, right? So guess what happened as a result? Condom sales went up 33% in the 1980s to help with safe sex.
That's so crazy.
So if you think about just the 20-year gap that we're talking about now, 10 to 20 years from the 1960s to the 1980s, or 70s through the 80s, I should say, up until the 90s, women started having uncountlessly godless amounts of more sex than they've ever had before.
Well, not just that, but like think about, so condoms condoms as we know them today became streamlined in what, the 50s or 60s, something like that?
Right.
Okay. So they were still taboo, really, until, you know, the 70s, 80s,
when
right?
the feminist movement really took place, because it gave the women the empowerment enough to get out and...
Empowerment.
To do their own thing, right? So that now there is a trend that we're going to start to see. And if you think of the 70s and 80s, for instance, maybe even some of the 90s, you think of the guys having the stigma of being the playboy, the one who's cheating on the women or having all these girls. You think of shows like Happy Days with the Fonzie, right? This is the time of that transition. I would say the 90s is where we start to see the flip, where the women start to take that role instead of the men. So in the 90s, text messaging becomes a thing.
Yep.
Okay? Think of this for a second. The first person to ever be broken up by text message happened in the 90s.
Yeah.
That was never an option.
No, you had to face them.
And with the stats that I've seen, 15% of men preferred that and 25% of women preferred that.
Preferred
breaking up
over text.
Breaking up over text.
Wow, that's wild.
So it unleashed a new way of
communicating
constantly with your partner, and also being let down without ever having to face anybody and feel the obligation or consequences of doing it.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So you can really start to see like the shift in power go to more of the women's side here at this point. Another fun one. In 1995, a very famous website was introduced to the world. Can you think of what it was?
Is it Cornhub?
It was not Cornhub. Match.com.
Oh,
one of the first real big dating sites in existence. 1995 it was launched.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I remember seeing commercials in like the early 2000s, but like that was the early 2000s.
And that was when it was established,
Yeah.
right? This is when it just launched, and it was...
Yeah, I got you.
So you got to think from 95 to, like you said, the early 2000s, it was kind of weird if you talked about it with your friends, like, hey, I met this chick on Match.com. You're like, do you trust finding these strangers online? That's so weird. Where nowadays it's normal.
Oh, well, it's considered normal. I still feel weird about trying to find people.
Because you're an old head, though.
I mean, I'm not that
both
old.
are, I
you
know.
got like 10 years on me almost.
Yeah. So...
But like, yeah, no, I don't know that. So I remember my aunt, okay, in the early 2000s, we were seeing those commercials, and she had just got done. I don't know. I can't remember if we were having a conversation about it or what, but I remember the conversation came up that she signed up for like Match.com and like actually paid for it and all that stuff.
Okay.
Bro, it was thinking about it now, it's kind of funny because like, you see so many of the consequences of that because, I mean, let's be nice about this. She is not thin, has never been thin.
Okay. She the thicky. I got you.
She's. I hope she never sees this.
Hopefully not.
She's got like a gap.
Okay.
And I mean that's probably all you need to know for
context.
Now, yeah. Let's just say on a scale of 1 to 10, she's like 3 or 4 best.
Okay.
Which sounds rough. Don't come for me. But no, yeah. And she was like, oh, I get tons of matches, but they're all, creeps, or I'm not interested in them, or this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And she could never actually say why she didn't like the guys.
Certain people.
Yeah, she never could say why she didn't like him. It was just always a no. And looking back now is probably, I mean, as a kid, don't know to go deeper, but like...
Was there a stigma behind just being online? Or was it...
Maybe, but I think it just speaks more to how shallow people became because of it.
That makes sense. That was the introduction of being shallow, of having more options than you knew what to do with.
You're window shopping instead of going, oh, this person's kind of cute. I like this
That's
person.
a good point, because where we're at right now in the timeline, if you go backwards, people didn't have that many options. If you had a beautiful woman in your local city,
that was it.
And you knew that she was there, chances are, just like today, a lot of guys are too shy to approach her. Mm-hmm. So she's not getting approached. Mm-hmm. So if you were the one who finally got the cojones to get up there and do it, you might have a date with the prettiest girl in the city.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Whereas now, you might find the prettiest girl in the city, but guess what? She's got 1,000 DMs. It's just not and you don't have to just select from this city. Yeah. Now she's got the whole world, and she's going to be flying to Bulgaria next week, it don't matter. So something else, the last thing that happened in the 90s that I have written down here is Hollywood started emphasizing dating through movies. So you started to see the dating rom-com movies start coming out, which then started to show you things like, oh, now I just want my life to be like that, or why can't I be like Friends and we just all just pass each other around and sleep with all of our roommates and be happy with it.
Okay, so I see where you were going with that.
Yeah.
For me, what I just thought of is the whole, I mean, this I guess started, 70s, 80s, whatever, maybe earlier.
Right.
But the whole, like, the for lack of a better way to put it, the Disneyfication of that, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty.
Well, that was 1930s.
Beauty and the Beast. No, I understand, but like, they came out, they republished a lot of those VHS tapes and stuff, right? Like, when did VHS tapes come out?
The early 80s, I think, if I remember correctly.
That era, how many people were raised on Disney seeing, the knight in shining armor. This is how you have to treat women. If you're a woman, this is how you're supposed to be treated.
But that started, like we said, in the 1930s, but it made sense then. Where chivalry was accepted and romanticized in its own way, because that was almost how you needed to treat women to get them to love you and like you.
I wouldn't say...
Because they didn't have the options.
I wouldn't say that it was normalized. I would say that it was...
It's almost like an indoctrination. Like they brainwash young men and women to think a certain way. And it worked in those earlier days. Until you get to...
So...
It doesn't work so much in modern society.
I was going to say, this might sound bad out of context, but something similar to that is it's not that they were brainwashed into, you know, this is how you treat, you know, a man if you're a woman. This is how you treat a woman if you're a man. I think the chivalry part of it is just, again, this is going to sound bad. The women were worthy of it en masse. And I'm not just talking about like, you know, you see what I'm saying? Like, like you were more likely to find a girl who had never been with anybody, was more wholesome, was more down to earth. They kind of had to be in those times because, like, like we just said, you didn't have all those options.
Right. That's true. I've only got like one or two in the 2000s era here, so we'll jump into that. 2000s. Long distance relationships via the internet.
Yeah.
For the first time ever. With face calls and things of that nature, where it was actually AIM. or just plausible in general to be able to speak to somebody with your cell phone or text message whenever you want, and not incur countless long distance fees from a landline phone or anything like that, right? So it allowed something like that to happen. Early 2010s,
iPhone came out.
Yep.
Well, that was before 2010.
Social media, obviously giving unprecedented access to women more than ever before. The things of like Instagram, Facebook. I mean, early 2000s when I was in college, in high school. If you remember old school days of Facebook, there was a poke option,
you
right?
could poke.
That was the introduction of the poke, where you'd be like, hey, kind of want your butt. Poke.
Do you know what like the poke function actually did on your Facebook account?
No, what did it do?
So like if you weren't friends with someone, let's say your profile was restricted.
Okay.
And you poked, you know, Mary Beth.
Yep.
And y'all weren't friends. Well, now Mary Beth, she gets the notification that you poked her and she can go look at your profile.
So it gives them access.
Yes.
Interesting.
Even though you're restricted.
Interesting. See, I would just poke when I was like...
Right, that's how we used
That was our old school DMs.
Yeah.
How you doing?
But
you know?
no, I get it, because we kind of did that too in like...
Yeah.
What was it, like... I guess freshman... I guess it was all high school, but...
Let me throw in there at this point, since we're talking about social media becoming a thing. Those days, mid-2000s to early to even 2010s, I don't remember sexually explicit pictures like there are today, like ass shots and bikini pictures.
Let's talk about that.
And I mean, we're going to get into probably more in the but go ahead, yeah.
So that really, and I know because I was partaking.
With the viewing, or were you just up there?
The viewing.
Oh, okay, you didn't.
The viewing. No. I mean, there might be something on Snapchat
somewhere,
around,
one or two floating around.
But no, so like Snapchat
underwear model
came
shots.
out. Yeah, Snapchat came out in like 2012.
Right.
You know, flex it in the door mirror. You know. Snapchat came out in 2012, and that. I mean, immediately, that's what people used it for.
Cheating.
It was well, not, I
because
mean,
the messages would delete itself.
Cheating,
this is perfect.
But nudes.
Nudes, too.
Yeah, nudes.
Yeah, because you could send it and the evidence is gone forever.
Yeah, there was a girl that, you know, that I dated in high school, and when I got to college, her parents didn't want us to keep dating, and we kind of tried to, and that's how we communicated with Snapchat, because it was just so...
Yeah.
It's just gone.
Just gone.
Yeah.
It's done.
And then I want to say that's around the same time that Instagram started getting like that too. Mm-hmm. And that's when, you know, I guess Snapchat really never died off, but
no, it's still, I mean, it's not used the same way. A lot of people just use it for casual conversation now, but yeah.
But, I remember we were sitting in, so the house that I was staying at, we were in the hot tub, and it was like me and 3 other dudes, and like 2 guys had their girlfriends there.
Okay.
And that's when I kind of found out about that, is like single chicks were like posting thirst traps on Instagram, expecting guys to go in and rate them.
Yeah.
And then that's how you would like hit people up.
Yeah. Right.
That was, and that
true.
was like, at least for me, that was like the first.
Do you think, so here's the question then. With that being said, if they're starting to use that as like a thirst trap, do you think that that is what almost took place of some of the dating apps before they became what they are today?
Oh yeah, I mean even
today, I guess they still use Instagram
with,
as a primary dating app.
Yeah,
even
with Tinder and
you're trying to lure them in,
and Bumble and all that crap. Yeah. Plenty of fish, whatever.
Right.
They're all like that. Or Instagram is like the place. You go out anywhere, no one wants to give you their phone number, but they'll give you that Instagram.
I'll give you my Instagram.
Yeah.
It's like a win-win almost, because not only do you get their contact so you can see them in the future, but realistically, you're also giving them a follow, which boosts their social media presence further, right? Yeah. So they're, even if they never talk to you, they're just getting something out of you in another way, right?
Exactly. And I mean, that's a big talking point for, all these dating gurus and self-help things for men on the internet right now, is like, what does your Instagram look like?
Right. Of course. And even, I'll put this out there since we just started this, so the people that don't know, I've been doing the coaching for dating for probably 7 to 8 years now, but locally. Mm-hmm. Whereas now I'm trying to expand it, online, and give everybody else the access to that and things of that nature. So the Instagram and all of our pages are just created. So if you do get the chance at some point in this video, or you like what you're hearing, down below I should have all the links to everything. So check that out. Give us some follows, because we need to build up the pages. But going to the next thing really quick, in the 2010s, the term catfishing became relevant in 2010.
Yeah.
Think of that. Never before the 2010s was catfishing a thing.
Bro,
Can you imagine living in a world before the 2000s where no one knew what catfishing was?
I mean, there probably just wasn't a name for it, because
but there was no internet. Think of that. Like, there was no profiles and things in early social media days where you can pretend to be somebody else.
Yeah, but like in the late 80s and early 90s, the internet became more,
But how could you catfish somebody, I guess? Let's say it was the days before cell phones.
Well, they used to meet in chat rooms. You know what people look like?
Before internet. There was no chat rooms.
Before internet, but you were talking about like...
Well, okay. I guess chat rooms, people were like, I'm a Playboy swimsuit model.
Here's a
picture of me.
I'm just in reality, it's just a neck beard in a basement.
Right, right. I guess maybe the better term, maybe not catfishing, but what would you call it? I guess you're using the angles.
Catfishing.
Let's say that.
No, because that came later.
That came later?
Yeah.
It was in the 2010s. People were doing that in 2015, 2016 probably.
Okay, fair. Right? Because when did Kim Kardashian get popularized?
Oh, early 2010s at least, if not earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, so that makes sense.
She was one of the OG sex tapes, besides like Pamela Anderson from back in the day. Swiping and DMs also came out in that time.
Yeah.
It's like the whole swipe left. Like, we all know what that means now.
Yeah.
That was not a term before the 2010s. It didn't exist.
It's so funny because, like, in my day job, when I assist people with setting up like certain programs and things like that, and they have to use a security authenticator, and it's so funny because like there's no other way to describe it other than open up the app and swipe left or swipe right, and the older people, they're like, what? Like, put your finger on the phone, go like this. Swipe. Yeah. Swipe.
This one's interesting. There's another term that came out in the 2010s that never really existed. Ghosting.
Oh, yeah.
You couldn't be ghosted prior to the days of no cell phones.
Bro, there's a song from a group called Confetti.
Okay.
Called Ghost. It's hilarious. I'll let you listen to it.
It has to do with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So ghosting, it's a strange one. The last thing that I had on here, which is a term that I didn't I'm not too familiar with. I don't know if it is actually becoming popular. It's just nonsense. But I do understand the logic behind it. So within the 2010s, there's something called dating fatigue that is being used. And basically what that means is because of the landscape of dating nowadays and the rat race that men will have to run through to get a date, go on a date. Let's say find a date. Let's start at the beginning. Find a date with a woman. Let's say they go on these swipe left, swipe rights, and they get 3 lined up for the week. Most of the time, the men will have to pay for those dates. So now you're paying for 3 separate dates throughout the week. Some, or all, may go poorly, and they never follow up. You may get ghosted, right? At that point. If you try to talk to women in person, it's a similar runaround where you'll be either used for drinks, they won't find you attractive, you don't have the right shoes on, whatever reason they find to not talk to you.
But you're not wasting as much time, effort, and build up, right?
So, but I'm just talking about everything as kind of a conglomeration, right? Yeah. This is what has caused dating fatigue, which is where this term comes from, where people, after a while, are so exhausted with trying to find the right partner and finding so many of the wrong ones, they just give up on dating altogether and they just stay home for the next 2 years.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's kind of where that comes from. It's I don't know. One of the things that I, going off topic of that I did write down specifically for myself to bring up today, is the simp mindset that men have.
Yeah.
What do you want to elaborate before I tear into this?
Oh man, that is like.
Because one thing I didn't bring up in our timeline is the existence of OnlyFans.
So yeah, but it goes way deeper than that. Okay, so like I think giving a woman that white knight behavior we talked about that was kind of brought on by like Disney and the romanticization. I think I said that right.
Yeah.
Of dating and relationships. I think white knighting for a woman who doesn't reciprocate is like the OG textbook definition of simping. Giving that attention to someone who either
without receiving in return,
doesn't want it or doesn't deserve it, and there's no reciprocation.
Okay, yeah, I can definitely see that.
Unfortunately, we all been through it.
We've all been guys
there.
Yeah, you almost have to live and you learn, and I will say that's the reason for this podcast existing. Almost right is. There are other reasons that I'll probably bring up at a later point. But one of them being is to help men really understand what they're getting themselves into, the dating landscape in general, and not to say that all women are like this. Unfortunately, it's just a good majority of the ones that you'll run into either have an OnlyFans or they're not that interested in you, but it's almost, I gave my barber...
You're convenient, so they'll keep you around.
I gave my barber this analogy today when I was getting my hair. I was talking to him about it. And I said, it's almost like if we were all martial artists. And for people who don't know about martial arts, right? Men, a lot of them, especially in the younger ages, when they're turning into their, adult years, 18 through 22, are white belts at dating. They don't know any better. Yeah. They're and statistically, a lot of them are virgins. Believe it or not.
Oh, it's like what? It's crazy. It's like what 1 in 3 men or more under the age of 30 are incels or are virgins.
Yeah, it's crazy. So with that being said, they're going out and they're dealing with a 22 to 25-year-old woman who's a black belt. She's a master. She's already had 100 DMs. She's interacted with men thousands of times. Yeah, and from what I've seen, the average woman is almost 20 bodies by 25 years old.
You're probably not far off. You're probably. We could probably look it up.
We can look it up. I'm sure after, but I think that's
pretty close.
I know that the numbers.
It's high.
The last time I looked it up for men and women the same age, the average body count was like 6 point something for men and like 7 point something for women. Mm-hmm. And that's just overall from all ages all the way up to like 60 something.
Okay, I was gonna say,
you know what I mean?
I feel like it's a little bit no
and
offense,
that's
ladies,
also taken into consideration. handicapped people, disabled folk,
everybody.
extremely obese, all of the people that are having 0 count mixed in with the people at 100 count, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of balances itself out. So the other side of it is, just talking kind of freely at this point, is the men that are being chased are all part of the top 10%.
Absolutely.
So realistically, they're not, women aren't giving all men a chance.
They don't see 90+% of men.
No. And the example of that is
1%ers.
If they go to Walmart or Target or their local grocery store, whatever that may be, there's men in there that work. And I promise you, you've probably never looked in their direction, not one time, because they're irrelevant, because they are not attractive. And they just pass by like ghosts every day. It's incredible. So, did you have anything else you wanted to add to any of that, or should I bring up some of my internet articles I found?
Oh, I mean, I guess just to kind of piggyback off of what you just said.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, how many times, this has unfortunately happened to me once or twice, but how many times have you have you met someone, this probably didn't happen to you, freaking
We'll see. I mean,
player over there.
No, everything, it's all happened to me. That's why I've learned from the unfortunate side of being the reciprocated of the poor choices and that kind of stuff, right?
So, yeah, this has happened like once or twice that I can think of, where you know a woman, right? You know her, like you had class with her or something.
Okay.
And then you're actually
an acquaintance.
Sure.
Or friend.
Sure. You want to call it that? Sure.
I'm just trying to figure out the level of how much you know her.
So like you know of her, you know who she is.
Okay.
Like, you know,
she may know who you are.
You've never spoken to her directly, let's say.
Okay.
Right.
More like I see her in the gym, or I see her in the classroom, or whatever your
You
situation
hang
is.
around the same people, whatever.
Okay. Got it.
And you are finally in a position to where, like, you guys talk, not necessarily to, you know, hit on her or, you know.
Sure. Just
scout
casual
her out.
conversation.
Yeah. Just a casual conversation. And you're like, yeah, I'm so-and-so. Oh, nice to meet you. And yeah, no, what do you mean? We have like 3 classes together and we know these, you know, this person. We all hang out together. Oh, well, I'm sorry. I never knew who you were.
So you've never been on her radar before. And,
Literally.
And you've been almost like secretly falling in love on your own.
No, I'm not saying that. Just in general.
A crush.
It doesn't
Maybe that's a better
word.
word.
It doesn't have to be somebody you're into. It's just a random chick that
I could relate to that in the old going to school days.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Elementary school. Maybe not that, because I wasn't into girls
Well, it was like
school.
that.
But junior high, high school.
I mean, it was
there
even
was a
like
girl
that
in your
in
class. You were
college,
like,
though.
man, what do I do to say something to her?
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she'll never fucking pay attention to you.
But I'm not even talking about that. I'm just talking about, you know, like even like in college, you know, being in the same circles as certain people or women, and they have no idea who you are.
I gotcha. Yeah. That's... I can't say that's happened in my adult life. I don't think I've ever put myself in that situation, but...
Actually, so...
yeah.
It was when I was still training. And I hadn't actually been around this group of friends in a couple of months. And I showed up to a party. I normally, like, I was growing my hair out at the time when when I had hair.
Right.
But, so it was kind of long. I know, right? It was kind of long, like not quite sunshine from Remember the Titans, like post haircut.
Okay.
So like not quite that long, like just long enough to where I was barely able to start like pulling it back if I wanted to.
Okay.
I wore a hat 90% of the time because I was told that's the best way, you know, just hide it and let it grow out, right?
Right.
And so I came, like, my hair was done, you know, my beard was trimmed. I was, like, dressed up a little. Not really. It was just, like, shorts and, like, a nice shirt or whatever.
Yeah.
And this girl who we had been in the same circle for, like, months, she, like, fell over herself. She just, like... it's
all
like,
of a sudden.
Yeah, it's like a switch flip. I'm like... I'm like, you know, like, we've been around... We've known each other now for how long?
She had a attraction trigger.
Yeah.
With the hair.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
It was something.
So that is common. There's a lot
But it's
of...
almost like she didn't notice me before.
Right. So I'll tell you. So a lot of women will have they'll never be able to verbally explain this themselves usually because they don't realize it. It's more like an innate thing.
Well, they don't have to because it's easy for them.
Right, it is. But they have an attraction trigger. So if you asked a woman, like, or even better, let's say you didn't have to ask her. Let's say we had a technology to peer into her brain and you said to her, what does your ideal man look like? She would formulate that in her head, what that look is, and everybody's going to be different. They might never be able to verbally explain it to you, verbatim of what it is, right? But if you can take that picture of what that is, if you have one of those features that ideal figure has, now you're immediately attractive to her. All of a sudden, that you may never had before.
They're gonna trick themselves into thinking that you have more attractive features that they like just because they found that one thing and it snowballs.
So if you fall into multiple attraction triggers, that's when the girl is head over heels for you, right? Yeah. And she'll do a little bit more, or she'll go out of her way a little bit more, or any of those type of things. So that is important, and that's why when I do the coachings with a lot of guys, I tell them, you're not going to be everybody's type.
Oh, no.
I don't care who you are. You can be Jason Momoa. Somebody's going to still think you're ugly.
It's
just the way it is.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is.
It's just how it is, unfortunately.
So you have to go through the trials and tribulations and the no's to get to the yeses. Because I may talk to 10 girls and 9 of them are into blonde guys. And unfortunately, I am not blonde.
Yeah.
So it's just, I'm screwed for those 9.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Until I get to the 10th that's like tall, dark, and handsome. That's the guy I want.
Yeah.
Okay, great. You know, finally. So you just have to kind of weed through the traffic to get to that point. So jumping into the stuff, we talked a little bit about it yesterday, but I wanted to get your full take today.
Right, yeah.
I posted something on our Instagram.
Okay.
There was a woman who slept with 600 people last year. God. And the New York Post, which is a whole separate topic, the fact that they're reporting on this, I don't even know if you qualified is the right word for them anymore, but the New York Post is posting that now that she's done with that, she's ready to look for love. and not only if you that's just the headline article. If you actually read the post, it actually still talks about how she's trying to hit 1,000 bodies this year.
Oh,
while looking for love.
Blonde chick?
Yeah.
Yeah, she hit 1,000. She did like, if it's the same chick, she did like 1,000 bodies in 24 hours.
No. That's a different chick.
Okay, different chick.
That we're gonna talk about her next. She did 100 in 24 hours.
Okay, everything I saw, she's trying to do 1,000.
I watched the whole documentary, so I'm an expert on
I gotcha.
her. Something Phillips is her name. I forget the first name, but
I don't know her name. Yeah. I just saw
this is a separate one. So let's talk about her since we're in this now. She made a new post today that I've seen. At least it may be older, but I've seen it today.
He's following for
research purposes. You're right. That's exactly right. Research purposes only. So after sleeping with the 100 men in one day in 24 hours, she was on a podcast.
Yeah.
Okay, shortly after.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you know about this yet.
I haven't seen the clips, but I know she went on a podcast.
She was on a podcast to talk about it, her experience, okay? Yeah. Let's just say, first, before we talk about the podcast, if you watch the documentary, you'll clearly see that after having intercourse with these 100 men, she definitely felt some kind of way. Whether she wanted to admit it or not, she ran off crying. She was definitely upset. Yeah. It was a traumatizing experience, and she didn't feel like she can even pretend to be herself anymore, and probably until the next day. Mm-hmm. Okay? And I say pretend because she's got some demons to be able to do this stuff.
Right, yeah. Right?
When she goes on this podcast, whatever amount of time later, a week later, 2 weeks later, whatever it is, she revealed to them that she found one of the used condoms from one of the 100 men in her 3 days after the experience that she didn't know was sitting in there. I just want you to let this sink in for a moment. She had a used condom in her.
Oh, it was still in her.
Multiple days after the experience.
That's so...
Which means she's not cleaning it very well.
No.
It probably smells some type of way.
And that dude, that's a biohazard. That's like a straight up biohazard.
It gets worse.
I've seen people come into the ER and like they've got that
things like that.
They think that something else is going on. The doctor pulls out like a dirty used
lot
condom.
of bacteria and shit, right? So here's what's worse.
It'll start breaking. I think some of them will even start like breaking down.
This is all just speculation at this point, right? But we don't know if that was number 1, number 50, number 100. That could have been in there for a while. Okay? Here's the other side of this. As of today, again, don't know if this is an old post or not, she's pregnant.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah.
Okay.
I saw
So
she was
multiple
pregnant.
months pregnant. And if you do the math, it's around that timeline.
Yeah.
So the speculation is, was she pregnant going into it and didn't know? Did she get pregnant from the guy who lost his protection?
Or like any of the others.
After.
That, you know.
Or right after. Maybe by somebody else, because she still does OnlyFans. So she's still, done 100 today,
plowed,
got to
yeah.
do another 2 tomorrow, right? She's
Yeah.
not stopping.
Yeah.
So this is just, she is an extreme. Let's put that out there. She is an extreme. But we live in a world where this person exists. And this has never existed, at least publicly, before.
Well, because it's glorified.
Correct.
You go, girl.
Well,
Miss
a lot of people are
Independent,
looking at her
girl
like she's crazy.
Well, yes, but like that kind of
But
lifestyle.
it's also causing headlines.
Yes.
That's the side of it. So regardless if it's tragic or not, it's something that people are clicking on and reading about.
Yes.
And causing headlines, which in turn fills her pockets.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, that's what she's trying to do, is fill her pockets. Right?
Well, she feels something.
She filled more than her pockets. Yeah, I just don't know how a man, think of it this way, and this is for the men out there that are watching this. How can you wake up in the morning in the year 2025, know that this woman exists, and even think that you can somewhat replicate those Disney movies we were talking about and be the knight in shining armor?
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I was getting at earlier.
It's crazy. There are so many women that do not, unfortunately, deserve it anymore. And again, this is not to say that everyone does. This is also a warning for the women, if any women end up watching this, that don't be like these people.
Yes.
Hold your virtues.
Yes.
Hold out for the right one.
Yes.
Because the more you do the wrong thing, you may not think body count matters, but to a man it matters.
Oh, it absolutely matters. I don't care if you live in Delululand or what. Like,
Yes. And you can say it's because they're not confident, they're insecure, they're XYZ.
look.
Here's the real reason why it matters. Okay?
Well, I know the biological reason, but
Well,
go
that's
ahead.
it.
Go ahead.
Your past will dictate your future, whether you like it or not. You are a red flag, for lack of a better term, because of what you've done. So if that gets out there, people know. The same way they won't give somebody with a terrible credit score a large loan
Yeah.
because they know your track record says you're bad with money.
Well,
Just the same way you're bad with men. I'm not going to give you.
a very basic way to put it in a general sense is just you lack self-control.
That's a great way to put it. That's a great way to put it. Lack of self-control. Because if you had that, you wouldn't be racking up as much. Now, and I know the terms, there are terminologies out there, hot girl summer.
Oh, God. That makes me so sick. Like,
Or a lot of different terms. I just had fun and when I was younger.
that's a red flag. Red flag. Red flag. Run for the hills if you hear that.
Yeah, it's not good. And men and women are just different. And that's the problem here. And the women don't care to realize that, mostly because they don't need to. Whether they realize it or not, whether they try to change or not, whether they do the right thing or not, there's still going to be somebody else trying to talk to them tomorrow. And that gives them the allowance to not do any of the right things. So at the end of the day, that's kind of what this podcast is created to talk about a little bit. Obviously, we're going to go into more depth in different episodes here coming up, but that's kind of all I've got for at least this one. Do you have any cool closing thoughts or questions or anything of exciting? I know you had a story yesterday I told you to wait for.
Yeah.
Do you remember what it was?
Yeah. I don't.
Is it the right moment?
I don't know if it's the right moment.
Okay.
Because, like, it's definitely relatable, right?
Okay.
Like, I feel like a lot of guys would be able to relate to this. But I don't know if it's, like, the right context to bust it out yet.
Okay. Well, hold on to it then if you want.
Yeah.
We'll keep a little hidden gem for
Yeah.
when it's the right theme.
You wanted to go more into, like, what to expect and things like that, right?
Yeah, if you want to elaborate on anything, sure. What to expect in today's dating market, you're saying?
No.
Or just for the podcast?
Yeah. I thought that's what you were
Oh,
talking
either
about.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah, either way. Just to wrap it up with these,
Well, I mean, there's going to be a lot of info coming in the next, coming days, weeks, months.
We're going to figure this out. Obviously, this is the first episode, so we kind of played with some of the equipment. We're, figuring things out along the way, but I feel like we're going to nail it down and get the rhythm and figure out what we want to talk about segment-wise, maybe a little bit better and things of that nature. And obviously, if anybody sees this and wants to add some things in the comments, feel free, like the video, comment below, tell us maybe what you want to talk about, or if you do have specific questions that I can bring up, something of that nature, that'd be perfect. That's all I've got.
Yeah. If you guys are looking for, and girls, really, you're looking for, a way to understand how to move in today's market, whether you're a girl or a guy, mostly geared towards men, obviously, but there's a lot of things that I think women are going to be able to pick up from this series too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. At least, if nothing else, figure out how not to act, right? Yeah. Maybe more so what guys are looking for. But yeah, I mean, mostly any of you guys out there, stick around. This is not, some hookup culture dating guru segment. This is, I want to be a better person. I want to understand things. I want to understand how, women specifically move and how to make my life better and not be miserable.
Yeah, and I do want to say that this was kind of a broad approach this episode, but we're going to get a little more focused on the actual process of talking to women in the future. So from everything from how you dress to how you look, what your haircut looks like, body language that you may come across while you're either looking for them or using yourself to attract, what to look like in certain clubs or environments or wherever you may talk to women, opening lines, hand gestures. I mean, you name it. I'm kind of going to try and talk about everything at some point. And if you see this and do want personal help, I do offer that too. That'll be in the links below. And you can check out that and see if we want to do something one-on-one with me where I can just listen to what your individual complaints or, experiences are. And then we can go across that and really discuss it and figure it out and give you some hands-on advice one-on-one.
Yeah. Anyone out there watching this, this guy knows what he's doing.
I do.
He's got the experience, for lack of a better way to put it.
Got some years doing this kind of thing. So yeah. I definitely know how to take it, at least from whatever stage you're at, whether you're already talking to people and can't land a permanent girlfriend, whether you're too scared to approach, whether you've never left your house yet. Whatever stage you're at, we can guide you to that next level so that you can better your own confidence, your own image, and you can use this for anything, not just dating, but if you want to use this for work-related events, public speaking, take it for whatever it is and just better yourself and learn something. It's never too late to step out of that box. So,
I guess last thing to add, if you truly are wondering, what's the point in talking about all of this?
Yeah.
It's going to make a lot of sense later on. It matters, I think, to understand kind of how dating has evolved, or at least how it is in your, for your generation or in the current marketplace, right?
Yeah.
Like
if you're single,
a young
you need
kid,
to know.
Yeah, absolutely. You have, because if you don't know how to move, I mean, every girl out there, whether they act interested or not in dating, they keep up with the times and they move with the times.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true. To go into what I'll end it with this. This will be the last thing. But so why is this important, right? So I'll give a personal experience, and I told you about it yesterday when we talked about doing this. But I had a gentleman. He was younger than me a little bit, by a couple of years, probably 5 or 6 years. And I had gone and worked with him, former coworker. He was a young guy. He's very small, very skinny, probably 5'4", probably 120 pounds soaking wet. He was, not a ladies' man by any means. He spoke very softly, and some of the people that I may know may see this and know who I'm talking about. But he ended up about a year and a half ago committing suicide. And to my knowledge, he was still a virgin at, older years in life, 30-something years old, younger 30s. 32, 30-something, wherever he was at the time. And I think it's primarily because he just felt like there was no way out. When you go through 30-something years of life without ever being attractive to the opposite sex, but having all of the urges of wanting to communicate with the opposite sex, it's not even about intercourse at that point. It's about an emotional connection with somebody and a loving touch, and you're missing those things. And that sounds sappy, and a lot of men are gonna be like, that's not manly at all. But we have to understand those things sometimes, that there are people out there that's what they want. And this is for those people too. I'm not here to just talk to the guys who are alphas. I'm ready to talk to the betas too, because they need the help. And I don't want to see another man take his life or do any of those kind of things because of they're just lacking a skill set.
Yeah.
That they can get help with.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as everything else. Riding a bike, playing a video game. I mean, any skill. Carpentry.
Yeah.
You figure it out. You have to do it. You have to put the time in. They say it takes 1,000 hours to master a skill, right? Mm-hmm. If you haven't been out talking to women for 1,000 hours, you are not a master. That's just the facts. So until you do that, you still have room to learn. I still have room to learn. I learn something new all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
I've seen things recently where I was taken completely off guard.
Yeah.
And I was like, these damn black belt women, they have a new trick up their sleeves that I've never seen in 2025.
Yeah.
This is unbelievable.
Yeah, you just get hit and you're like, oh, how do I respond
It's crazy.
to that? Yeah.
So,
if you want to develop skills that will help you get where you want to go in life,
right,
in a healthy way,
yes,
welcome home.
That's it. That's it.
Gotta walk the talk and sing the rhyme. Confidence so heavy it stops time. Eyes on the prize, yeah, that's the line. Step in the room, it's my paradigm. Swipe right once, I've got the charm. Heart beats fast, creates alarm. In my zone, my calm disarms. Hand in hand, we light the stars. Speak like a boss, talk like a king. Words cut through like it's nothing. Swagger in every single thing. Crowd cheers loud, it's a winning ring. Date nights lit like city lights. VIP, we own the nights. Success in love, reach new heights. Whisper sweet and hold her tight. Confidence flows like a river wide. No need to hide, just glide and ride. Challenge me though, I've got the pride. In my world we'll all collide. Speak like a boss, talk like a king. Words cut through like it's nothing. Swagger in every single thing. Crowd cheers loud, it's a winning ring.